Good afternoon. My name is Alexia Tasouli. I'm a military and diplomatic correspondent. Our next panel is under the title, The Arsenal of the World, Industrial Capacity and the Limits of Time. So our session will examine whether they can rebuild defense industrial capacity at the speed demanded by reality and what happens if they cannot. So I have the privilege to welcome Mr. Walid Abukhaled, Chairman of Scopa Industries, CEO of Saudi Arabian Military Industries. Welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. Nikolaos Papatsas, a board member of EFA Group and Vice Chairman at the Hellenic Aerospace Security and Defense Industries Group. Welcome. And Mr. Christoforos Boutsikakis, CEO of Hellenic Defense Systems. Kalispera.
Kalispera.
Mr. Abukhaled, I will start with you. From your experience in establishing and leading SAMI and now chairing Emir and Scopa Military Industries, and also as a member of the Saudi Arabian Industrial Development Center, what is the biggest constraint preventing countries from scaling defense industrial capacity fast enough, and like capital, technology, workforce, regulation, or even supply chains?
Okay, thank you so much. First, thanks for the organizers for inviting me here. I think it's always great to have a diversified audience and diversified speakers. Honestly, it opened up our minds. I've seen the panels before us.
Excellent.
And sometimes it's good to see that the troubles and the problems you face are similar to really many other countries. But with Basel, when I get introduced to Basel, Basel is a very Arabic name. So I was shocked that the Greek trusted an Arab to do a defense summit. So I was really shocked. Until I met him face to face, it took me less than a second to know he's not an Arab. But he's a genius. He's done an amazing work. Look, I mean, everything you've listed, there isn't a single factor that affect the capacities, increasing capacities very quickly. I think it's lots of factors. First of all, capital. Mm-hmm. Capital, I believe anywhere in the world, when the governments are serious, of course they can commit capital and they will find a way. I know maybe Saudi is privileged because it's considered a rich country, there's oils and so on, but again, when there is a will, there's a way. Any government can commit capital to increase capacities and to build an industrial base when there is seriousness about this. But then you go into technology. Technology is a bit harder, but to be honest, if you do strategic partnership with global OEMs, then it can be done, it can be accelerated through these strategic partnerships. Then you talk about people, and in my view, this is probably the most difficult. Globally, I think companies are not having issues with finding the right engineers, they're having issues with finding the right technicians, and the number of technicians that can work and deliver and work with very sophisticated systems. But I think with the right training and the right commitment from the top, I believe this can accelerate it. But if there is a single thing that can make a difference, it's commitment from the government for the long term and stability of demands. This is where companies and investors always extremely cautious, because you don't want to invest in big factories, hire lots of people, when there isn't a steady demand or guaranteed demand or visibility for the long-term requirements from the government. And if there's a message I have to leave with here is honestly, governments have to treat industries as a strategic partner, not as a supplier. And they have to work together for the long-term demands in order for the private sector to start to invest in the right way to deliver to the government requirements.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Now, Mr. Papatsas, from an industry perspective, what is the single and the biggest maybe obstacle preventing Europe and its allies, of course, from scaling defense production fast enough?
So I tend to agree a little bit with the points that you made, or a lot with the points that you made. And again, it's not a question of capital. I mean, governments or industries will commit to capital. The biggest challenge that we have here is predictability for those investments that they are being made by the industry. So predictability means how can I sustain the business long term, not short term, because let's face it, governments think in annual cycles, or let's say biannual cycles or 2-year cycles for their procurement programs. They're not thinking for the long term, 10 years or 15 years. So, and this is how business works. Business invests in capital and invests in technology, looking out to a time frame. So this also comes to the question of resilience. If you really want to have resilience and you really want to sustain this, then the only answer is predictability again, so long-term contracts. And we talked a little bit about technology and find the right technicians. Industry is capable of developing technology, we've seen that. Finding technicians and training technicians is a different story. I must say, as a recent example, when you look at the ammunition demand that occurred due to Ukraine, most of the production lines in Europe, they were either idle or they were producing very little. A lot of the workforce was lost. I mean, maybe it was repurposed to other, Mr. Boutsikakis probably will tell us more about it. They were repurposed to other activities. So trying to restart that, trying to find the components, trying to find everything else that is required takes a long time. So resilience is also the deterrence. If you cannot produce fast enough, and this is what we've seen now, nobody takes you seriously. Not the deterrence is not there, but you are able to produce all the time, and you are able to produce continuously and have the resilience. So these are the challenges that they come for the industry, and this is where I think the institutional changes are needed, more or less, or the realization that governments need to be thinking more in the cycles that the industry needs to think in order to have this resilience in the industrial capacity.
Ευχαριστώ πολύ. Κύριε Boutsikakis, έρχομαι τώρα σε εσάς, διότι το τελευταίο 1,5 χρόνο έχουμε παρατηρήσει ότι η εταιρεία σας και εσείς προσωπικά έχετε καταφέρει να προχωρήσετε την εταιρεία σε μια μεταστροφή. Οπότε ήθελα να μας κάνετε μια ιστορική αναδρομή σε αυτόν τον 1,5 χρόνο, πώς έχει καταφέρει η εταιρεία να αλλάξει.
Η αλήθεια είναι ότι και οι προλαλήσαντες είπαν πολύ σημαντικά πράγματα σχετικά με τον τρόπο με τον οποίο λειτουργούσε η αγορά μέχρι τώρα. Ειδικά όσον αφορά την αγορά των πυρομαχικών, υπήρχε και πάρα πολύ μεγάλο έλλειμμα και έλλειψη στην αγορά πρώτων υλών. Εκτός των τεχνικών, οι οποίοι χρειάζονται έτσι ώστε να μπορέσεις να δημιουργήσεις το προϊόν, αυτό το οποίο έλειπε είναι και, μάλλον ένα πάρα πολύ σημαντικό κομμάτι, είναι και το θέμα της ποιότητας. Γι' αυτό το λόγο και οι εταιρείες τέτοιου είδους, όπως η δική μας, δίνει πάρα πολύ μεγάλη σημασία στον έλεγχο ποιότητας και του τελικού προϊόντος, αλλά και όλων των φάσεων της διαδρομής των συστατικών, ας πούμε, του τελικού προϊόντος. Αυτό το οποίο παρατηρήσαμε το που ανέλαβα την εταιρεία είναι ότι υπήρχε μια δυσκολία στο να μπορούν τα μέρη τα οποία έχουν να κάνουν με την παραγωγή να συνοηθούν μεταξύ τους. Επίσης, έλειπαν κάποιες βασικές, ας πούμε, λειτουργίες, οι οποίες δεν είχαν αξιοποιηθεί, ούτε είχαν και αξιολογηθεί ανάλογα από την προηγούμενη διοίκηση, με αποτέλεσμα να δημιουργούν ένα πολύ μεγάλο κορισμό στην παραγωγή και δεν μπορούσαν να απελευθερώσουν τις ποσότητες τις οποίες χρειάζονται. Αυτό το οποίο καταφέραμε ήταν να τριπλασιάσουμε τις ποσότητες, τετραπλασιάσουμε σε κάποια προϊόντα στην ημερήσια παραγωγή. Ο τζίρος έχει τριπλασιαστεί σε σχέση με το 2024 και φέτος, πρώτα ο Θεός, πάμε για περίπου double score στην περσινή απόδοση. Έχουμε καταφέρει και έχουμε φτάσει στο 80-90% της δυνατότητας παραγωγής των βλημάτων των 155 χιλιοστών. Δηλαδή, πέρυσι παράξαμε γύρω στα 130-140.000 κομμάτια, τα οποία και τα τιμολογήσαμε. Δηλαδή, δεν είναι μια θεωρητική παραγωγή, είναι πραγματική παραγωγή. Πράγμα το οποίο δείχνει ότι αν υπάρχει θέληση, υπάρχει αυτό που είπε και ο κύριος από τη Σαουδική Αραβία, ότι where's the will, there's the way always.
Ευχαριστώ πολύ. Now, back to you, Chairman. We have witnessed that Saudi Arabia has made defense localization a national priority under Vision 2030. So, what lessons may and can other countries learn from this Saudi model? And when we're trying, all of us, to build a sovereign industrial capacity under very urgent timelines, as we can see.
No, thank you. Look, let me start in answering this question by giving example about SAMI. SAMI is Saudi Arabia military industry. The Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, who's leading Vision 2030, went on live on TV maybe a year before the company has been established and said, Saudi Arabia has the largest defense budget in the world. It was number 3, actually, one of the top 3, but you got US, China, and then Saudi Arabia. Yet, when we talk about local product, localization, it's almost 0. It was actually 2.5% or 3%. That was in 2018. In early 2019, so he said, we will establish a national defense champion to execute the vision of localizing defense industry. 2019, SAMI was established. I joined end of 2019. 5 years later, actually I was employee number 129, I remember this. 5 years later, I left in October 2024. When we left, we had 7,000 employees. We established about 13 joint venture with global organization. We're talking top 10, top 15, top 20. We trained really all the staff that we had. We recruited some of the best local talents, and we recruited some of the best international talents, because Saudi Arabia never had really defense industry. They were the best procurer of defense equipment from the best OEMs in the world. So our forces are used to this. You just buy the best out of the best directly from OEM with really minimal, absolute minimum localization. In addition, maybe something you'll be interested in, but we hire, our female percentage in the company were about 18%.
Great.
Mind you, this is honestly, it's not a good number with what the government wants. They want to empower female more. But in Saudi Arabia, you need to appreciate female never had contribution to, or as being part of the workforce. They were in education. It was female-only schools. They were in healthcare, but never in defense. So in defense, it was 0. And to do this within such a short period, to have 18% in defense, and many females, including my daughter, didn't want to get into defense because she said, you're bad people, you know, you do things that goes boom, and we're not interested. But this is
changing now. It's changing.
I think so. I think so. So within this short period, when I left, it became number 75 globally, the largest in the top 100 defense company in the world in size. It was number 75. The goal is to make it top 25 by 2030. The reason why this happened, it's nothing to do with my good looks or me being smart or demanding or anything. It's in honesty, it came from the very top. The Crown Prince said, this objective is part of Vision 2030. We have to localize 50% of the defense spend by 2030. When he announced this, it was only 3%. Now, as of last year, it is 25%. So there is still we have 4 years to catch up and deliver the other 25%. Is there challenges? Is there difficulties? Absolutely, tremendous difficulties, because it was a huge shake-up to the whole system. You have to align with the end users, you have to align with the MOD who do the procurement, the customer who does the procurement, and you have to align with the regulators. There was no regulators. So again, the Crown Prince said, we need to establish a general authority for military industry to regulate the whole industries. Now the issue was, how do they all synchronize and talk to each other? There have been tremendous difficulties, but I believe because of the push from the very top, it made life a lot easier. I remember very much when I started my job with SAMI, I went to a commander of one of the forces, and I said, look, I need work. I need to feed this big company now. And he said, Walid, you are a paper company. What do you have? You have 0 factories. You don't have technicians or engineers. What should I give you? So that's why I went on and we did a joint venture with a multinational company just to bring the credibility at the beginning. But now I'm sure you will hear, there is indigenous capability being built, specifically starting with land systems, but there are other capabilities that are being built in Saudi Arabia. They established again a new agency called General Authority for Defense Developments. This is mainly R&D for defense. But the ultimate message, if there isn't push and buy-in from the top leadership and really the armed forces, it will never work. You need that I would say, also compromise from the workforce, because our forces are used, as I said, to buy the best of the best from OEM. Now they have to accept something that's made locally, definitely not as good as someone who's been in the business for 30 or 40 or 60 years. But this is the key message. I think buy-in from top leadership, and they will make it happen.
Let's hope so. Very interesting. Thank you. Mr. Vice Chairman, how important is private sector innovation in rebuilding defense industrial capacity, and are governments moving fast enough to work with the industry?
Okay, thank you very much for the question. By the way, I was recently in Saudi Arabia for the defense exhibition,
Right.
and I was presented with this statistics on how you moved up from the 0% to 25%, and I think this is very impressive.
Thank you.
I hope you reach your goal. It's a very nice goal. We have the same goal in Europe, where the vision is in 2030 to produce at least 50% of the defense equipment that the governments buy. You know, we have 27 governments in Europe, that the governments buy are European-made, with a goal to extend that to 65% of, within the next 3 years. After that. So going back to defense innovation, look, private industries and technologies and companies are innovating a lot faster than maybe the governments can absorb. The reason for that being is that some of these companies or some of these technologies were originally commercial technologies, dual use as we call them maybe today, that they found their way into all this high-tech stuff. Let's look at the AI. And every system that is going to be produced today that is defense-oriented is going to have an AI component in it. AI, private industry was using a long time. I want to say also about the data and communications. Remember 10 or 15 years ago, Google was gathering data to be able to target advertisements. Now data become critical because sovereign data is used in intelligence and into a whole of other things that we need for defense and security, preventive measures. So technology and companies are able to develop technology fast enough. The difficulty is, again, governments are not ready to absorb these technologies fast enough because you need to go through operational testing, and once the technology is very unique, then you need to find a way on how to contract for it and how to utilize it. So the cycle from adopting technology to contracting for that technology to utilizing the technology is probably a little long. Look how technology evolved in drones since the war in Ukraine started and what it is today versus what it was 4 years ago. It's an amazing leap in technology and an amazing leap in defense and security using this type of technology. So private industries are able to bring technology into market fast enough. They are able to innovate, and most of the time they do not need the capital to do that, but adopting these technologies in operation requirements by governments, it's a little bit longer. We'll go back to the predictability issue. And I must say one more thing. Maintaining the talent to keep on developing these technologies in a national environment requires that some of the competitiveness and the job creation needs to be aligned, because in order to retain talent, because everybody looks for talent around the world, it's an international problem, you need to have incentives to maintain this talent in your country in order to have the resilience you need in order to be able to do this type of programs. So it's very, very important from a private industry perspective. They are able to develop the technologies, but on the other hand, the governments need to be aligned with a strategy on how to maintain this resilience and technological edge.
All right, thank you. Κύριε Boutsikakis, μας κάνατε μια πολύ ενδιαφέρουσα αναδρομή πριν για τον τελευταίο 1,5 χρόνο. Ήθελα όμως τώρα να ρωτήσω, από εδώ και πέρα τι γίνεται, αν τα πράγματα γίνονται ευκολότερα, αν τα πράγματα γίνονται δύσκολα, ποια είναι τα σχέδιά της εταιρείας για τα επόμενα 5 χρόνια, για παράδειγμα.
Κοιτάξτε, η αλήθεια είναι ότι επειδή είμαστε μια δημόσια επιχείρηση, έχουμε όλες τις αγκυλώσεις, του δημοσίου τομέα, που αφορούν είτε τις προμήθειες, είτε την πρόσληψη προσωπικού. Υπάρχουν κάποιοι δρόμοι τους οποίους ακολουθούμε, έτσι ώστε να μπορέσουμε να ανταποκριθούμε στις απαιτήσεις τις οποίες χρειάζονται. Αλλά πάντα υπάρχει ένα πρόβλημα το οποίο παρουσιάζεται στο δρόμο. Αυτό το οποίο μπορώ να σας πω είναι ότι η συνεργασία την οποία, ας πούμε, υπογράψαμε πριν από ένα τρίμηνο περίπου, τετράμηνο, με την MSM Group για την παραγωγή πυρομαχικών στο εργοστάσιο του Λαυρίου, η οποία αφορά εκτός των άλλων και το ευρωπαϊκό πρόγραμμα, το SAFE, το ASAP μάλλον, συγγνώμη, για την παραγωγή base bleed grain και διάφορα άλλων components τα οποία χρειάζονται στην παραγωγή πυρομαχικών, μας δίνει μια, ας το πούμε, δυνατότητα να μπορούμε να κοιτάμε το μέλλον με πολύ μεγαλύτερη θέρμη και μεγαλύτερη προοπτική. Ναι. Θεωρώ ότι αυτός ο τρόπος ανάπτυξης της εταιρείας είναι αυτός ο οποίος συνάδει και στην παρούσα φάση, με την έννοια του ότι έχουμε ανάγκη να είμαστε αυτάρκοι σαν χώρα, όχι μόνο στα πυρομαχικά, αλλά και σε όλα τα κομμάτια της παραγωγής ενός οπλικού συστήματος, είτε αυτό αφορά πλατφόρμες, είτε αυτό αφορά υποσυστήματα. Θεωρώ ότι η εταιρεία ΓΕΑΣ δημιουργήθηκε από τη συνένωση της ΕΒΟ και της Πυρκάλ. Και οι δύο εταιρείες αυτές, και η ΕΒΟ και η Πυρκάλ από μόνες τους, κάποια στιγμή στην ιστορία ήταν πάρα πολύ πρωτοπόρες σε αυτό που κάνανε. Οπότε έχουμε συγκεντρώσει μια ιστορία 150 ετών και από τις δύο εταιρείες, η οποία μας δίνει τα εφόδια και τον τρόπο σκέψης που μπορεί να δημιουργήσει όλες τις προϋποθέσεις, ούτως ώστε η εταιρεία στο μέλλον να δημιουργήσει πολύ μεγάλες ευκαιρίες και για την εγχώρια παραγωγή, αλλά και αυτό που είπα πριν, που είναι πάρα πολύ σημαντικό, για την αυτονομία της χώρας στην παραγωγή πυρομαχικών και των πρώτων υλών, οι οποίες είναι απαραίτητες, γιατί στη δύσκολη στιγμή, το είδαμε και στο πόλεμο της Ουκρανίας, αλλά και τώρα σε αυτό το οποίο συνέβη και στο Ιράν, υπάρχουν τρομερές ελλείψεις στην αγορά και δεν υπάρχει κανείς ο οποίος θα σου προσφέρει απλόχερα όταν έχει ανάγκη ο ίδιος την πρώτη ύλη για τη δική του άμυνα και τη δική του πορεία, την οποία χρειάζεται η εταιρεία του ή το κράτος του.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, back to you. In a world where wars can consume ammunition, drones, spare parts, and platforms faster than industry can replace them. In your opinion, how should governments and private defense companies may rethink their relationship to move from peacetime procurement to wartime readiness?
I mean, it's a tricky question, but the government, in my view, have to stop having transactional relationship with industries. I think genuinely have to move from transactional into a strategic relationship. What that means, it's in a way what we've referred to and previously is show demand, show stability of demand, or say I'm expecting to have that much demand in the next 5 years. It's never perfect, that's fine, but at least commit to a number that absolute minimum, but not for now or next year. Unfortunately, in our region in general, everything they want it yesterday. They want things immediate, saying, I have an order of so many million ammunition and so on. It's impossible for industry to have this ready. I mean, yesterday we heard the former Prime Minister of Bulgaria. He said when Ukraine war started, they had stock of almost $5 billion worth of ammunition, and that helped Ukraine tremendously. But you can never guarantee that, you know. So I think how the governments can build strategic long-term relationship with supplier is extremely important. In Saudi, now there is 5-year plan and there's 10-year plan. The 10-year plan is purely financials in a way. It says we need to prepare ourselves to spend that much. But look, when war comes, and specifically unexpected ones, it makes the priorities shuffle a lot. When OEMs or industry focusing, for example, on ships, You know, now, as we know, in our region, because of the Iran war, everything is related to air defense. That's the top priority. Whoever was working on something else is really almost put on hold until someone can come and have immediate solutions for air defense to protect the country, to protect the people. So things do change. If I'm, again, to sum up with something, it's change the relationship between government and supplier to make it strategic. The government have to see the industry as strategic assets, not a supplier. Genuinely strategic assets to protect the country.
It's very interesting because you mentioned the current developments, the war in the Middle East. So I'm curious to ask you, we have the Strait of Hormuz situation, and we have the threats of the American president who says that the war might continue and future attacks might happen again. So in your opinion, how this ongoing situation and the ongoing threat has made Saudi rethink the whole process in military level, of course, but generally in political and social terms?
Yeah. Well, we've heard from the US president that the war will take about a week to 2 weeks. We've heard various things. In honesty, to answer this, I need a crystal ball.
Yeah.
See what's
Nobody knows the answer.
Absolutely nobody knows the answers. What's obvious is it's not in the interest of anyone to continue this war. It's definitely not in the interest of the US and definitely not the interest of Iranians. But for Saudi, I think the experience Saudi had in Yemen before, in the war in Yemen, I think honestly prepared Saudi extremely well for air defense. The unfortunate things is Saudi have, as we all know, Patriots and THAAD, and they are extremely expensive to fire against cheap drones. Again, the experience from Ukraine war have taught Saudi lots of lessons, and there is a relationship, as we know, with Ukraine, a very solid one, where some of those technology that have been successful in Ukraine to be used in Saudi, Saudi always went for the best solutions. It's definitely not the cheapest. It's always go for very, very expensive, but very, very reliable solutions. Now I think there's reconsideration of saying, look, we can go with tier 2 and tier 3 companies, specifically companies who have proven solutions in wars like Ukraine. So that made a shift. But the big decisions came in Saudi. That was when Crown Prince launched Vision 2030. It's all about sovereignty. You know, there's been previous war where certain countries said, enough, we're not going to export anything to Saudi Arabia. And they had their own logics and their own reasons. Up to now, I mean, when we deal with US, of course, there's ITAR issues. ITAR is extremely complex. Even the US will tell you this. This is extremely complex. To get approval, you can wait 1 year, 2 years, and then with an answer of no. So for us to achieve Vision 2030, to localize and to have sovereignty in this, we have to depend on strategic partners who are not as strict and can transfer technology and know-how. But I believe Vision 2030 was all about sovereignty when it comes to defense industry.
So I guess the Vision 2030 is a landmark for you. It's a landmark for sending a message to the area, but to the entire international community, I guess.
Absolutely. Look, I believe all big OEMs, and we've dealt almost with all of them, no, if you want to win in Saudi, think localization, think technology transfer. The old good days, and I was part of the old good days. I was representing multinational OEM, where we would come, sign a contract, win, deliver it all from back home, if it's US, if it's UK, deliver it, get the money, and then wait for the next contract. Those days are gone. Now, if you want to be successful in Saudi, you've got to think about localization and technology transfer and doing things from within. The absolute minimum our forces will accept now is at least to fully support the product or the platform that's being sold from within Saudi Arabia. And then there's different criteria for evaluation, but it will take a bit of time to explain it all.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I don't know if Mr. Papatsas, you want to comment on what the interesting remarks he made, but I want to ask you also how important is private sector innovation in rebuilding defense industrial capacity, and do you think, in your opinion, governments are moving fast enough to work with the industry?
Well, maybe this has changed, even though there's still an institutional change that needs to be made in the approach of the governments. And let me be frank, the institutional change that I'm talking about is to shorten the procurement cycles, number one, And number two is to extend the procurement contracts with visibility to the industry. I think if those two are solved, and this is a global problem. This is not only a European or Saudi problem or everywhere else. Governments were used to feel differently. Remember, a lot of the governments also, they had what we called in the industry the white elephants. What were the white elephants? The white elephants were state-owned companies which were set up at one point or another to secure a supply or security of supply for the country. Sometimes they were involved in electronics, sometimes, most of the time they were involved in ammunitions. So when they produced the ammunition quantity, let's say, that the army wanted, then they went about and they became less productive. They became somebody that the government needed to maintain, but they were not producing anything. So slowly, this is why they were called white elephants. So now this thing has all changed. I believe now we're mostly interested to see joint ventures. I think it's important for governments to participate in those joint ventures, but they need to be private industry inspired, as I said before, because private industry, even though it needs the government alliance for predictability on their contracting and everything else, private industry can bring in the breadth that is needed for hiring new talent, for developing new technologies, and for making the business work, meaning looking exports, looking to make alliances, looking to talk to OEMs so they can expand the business. So I think this is a model that we need to see more or less even in, not only in Europe, but I think the Middle East. This is a model. Everybody's talking about the vision of 2030. The vision of Saudi obviously was a 10-year vision or maybe 12-year vision. The European vision is a 5 or 6 year vision. So there's a lot of challenges coming in there, and I think there is a will. Industry is there to take the challenge. Industry can hire the talent, can train the talent, and for example, we saw recently in Germany that some of the defense contractors, they are hiring now people that they left the car industry because the car industry was in a decline. So these people were skilled and upskilled in order to work on the defense side. And very recently, I think last week, I read that Rheinmetall, for example, bought a couple of factories that they were producing cars before to convert them to make military vehicles. Excuse me. So private industry can take these initiatives and do these things, but I'm saying once again, they need the government by their side or next to them in order to have the visibility to make these moves.
So you think trust is very important, trust between each government and the companies, and trust between the European alliances maybe, or maybe with other international companies. So do you think trust is a very key element for working together with the companies?
I really believe in that, and you know, nobody can develop everything on their own. So it's very, very important to have relationships. It's very, very important to have alliances. And it's very, very important to cooperate so you don't waste resources in reinventing the wheel. If somebody has invented something, why spend resources to reinvent it and not make an alliance and use that in a system, in a product, or what have you? So I believe alliances and working together, even as countries at government levels or at OEM's level, is very, very important.
Ευχαριστώ πολύ. Κύριε Μπoutsikaki, επειδή μας παρακολουθούν πολλοί διεθνείς ακροατές εδώ στο συνέδριό μας, ήθελα να ρωτήσω τι μήνυμα εσείς μπορείτε να στείλετε ως εκπρόσωπος της εταιρείας, μήνυμα εμπιστοσύνης από εσάς, από τη χώρα μας, προς τους συνομιλητές, προς τους διεθνείς ομιλητές σας, προς τους παρευρισκομένους, ότι είναι μια εταιρεία που μπορούν να εμπιστευτούν και μπορούν να εμπιστευτούν επειδή είναι μια ελληνική ακριβώς εταιρεία, άρα είναι ένα μήνυμα που η Ελλάδα πρέπει να το στείλει προς τα έξω.
Η αλήθεια είναι ότι είμαστε οι μοναδικοί παίχτες στην Ελλάδα οι οποίοι διαχειριζόμαστε εκρηκτικές ύλες και μπορούμε να παράξουμε τέτοιου είδους προϊόντα. Όμως θα ήθελα να σταθώ σε κάτι το οποίο είπε ο κύριος Παπάτσας πριν. Είμαστε μια εταιρεία η οποία εδώ και πάρα πολλά χρόνια συνεργαζόμαστε μέσω ενός πανευρωπαϊκού προγράμματος μεταξύ 8 χωρών στην παραγωγή του πυράβλου Iris. Ο πυράβλος Iris αυτή τη στιγμή κάνει πάρα πολύ μεγάλες πωλήσεις στην Ουκρανία αλλά και στη Μέση Ανατολή. γιατί χρησιμοποιείται πάρα πολύ και στην αεράμινα, αλλά και στις μάχες των αεροπλάνων, στις αερομαχίες. Εκεί φαίνεται λοιπόν η συνεργατικότητα μεταξύ και η εμπιστοσύνη μεταξύ των κρατών και των εταιριών. Γιατί βλέπουμε ότι είμαστε η αποκλειστική παραγωγή της κεφαλής, της εκρηκτικής κεφαλής του πυράβλου και της κεφαλής η οποία κάνει την όπληση και το λοκάρισμα του στόχου. Οπότε, από τη στιγμή που μας εμπιστεύονται οι Γερμανοί, οι οποίοι τρέχουν το πρόγραμμα αυτό, αλλά και η Ευρώπη, η οποία μας αγοράζει τα προϊόντα αυτά, και οι χώρες αυτές οι οποίες επιλέγουν τον πύραυλο αυτόν στο να μπορούν, και είναι από τους πιο επιτυχημένους πυράβλους στη μάχη αυτή τη στιγμή και μπορούν και ανταπεξέρχονται στις απαιτήσεις τους, δείχνει ότι η σύμπραξη πραγματικά των ιδιωτών με το κράτος μπορεί να δημιουργήσει πολύ ωραίες συνέργειες και μπορεί να δημιουργήσει added value, ας το πούμε, στην εταιρεία και τη δική μας, αλλά και στην αγορά και στο industry μέσα στη χώρα, γιατί δημιουργεί τέτοιες ευκαιρίες που πραγματικά στο παρελθόν δεν μπορούσαμε να τις δούμε. Οπότε θεωρώ ότι η εμπιστοσύνη υπάρχει, οι μεγάλες εταιρείες ξέρουν ποιοι είμαστε, ξέρουν τι μπορούμε να κάνουμε, ξέρουν τον τρόπο με τον οποίο μπορούμε να συνεργαστούμε. Εμείς είμαστε ανοιχτοί σε συζητήσεις και σε συμπράξεις. Είμαστε εδώ για να συζητήσουμε το οτιδήποτε και με μεγάλη χαρά. Ήδη το πετύχαμε μια φορά με τους Τσέχους συνεταίρους μας που κάναμε την κοινή εταιρεία, την Ελληνικά Πυρομαχικά. Έτσι μπορούμε να κάνουμε και σε άλλους τομείς, άλλου είδους συμπράξεις, οι οποίες θα μπορούν να προσφέρουν και στην χώρα και στην εταιρεία και στο κράτος και στην Ευρώπη τα αποτελέσματα τα οποία όλοι θέλουμε.
Thank you. Chairman, since you made a long way from Saudi Arabia to come here, I would like to take the opportunity to ask you one more question, if you don't mind. I would like to ask you, what's the level of the situation between the countries in the area and with Israel and with the other Arab countries in military terms and in political terms? What's the situation now between the countries in the Middle East?
Well, again, I'll tell you what's been publicly stated. Relationship with Israel, Saudi made it super clear many times. When Israel accept two-state solutions, then Saudi is open for relationship. That was said from day one, and that's still exactly the same message. It's not, they're not saying no, but they say let's have fair two-state solutions, and then we're absolutely open for strategic relationship. Relationship in Saudi, again, it was part of Vision 2030, is to have positive strategic relationship with everyone, and including the Ukraine and Russian war. To be honest, they are good with both parties, and they generally try to negotiate peace, and I think they've been involved in prisoner exchange before. They tried their best to not to have someone against them or to have the wrong relationship. With neighboring countries, and specifically Gulf states, it's like having kids in the house. So they do fight, they do argue, but also at the end of the day, they always are together and support each other. Is there disagreement in certain issues? Absolutely, there are disagreements, but generally, if you look at in long term, they are united. I personally look forward to the day where we have united Gulf nations. But I believe Saudi is making sure that the relationship is always strategic with its neighbors, and because, again, Crown Prince MBS stated clearly, Saudi will prosper and achieve its full vision if our neighbors are not enjoying the same prosperity and peace. If you look at the history of Saudi, at least since I was born, Saudi have always been a safe place, but unfortunately, you look around us, there's always conflict. The Iraq-Iran war, the Yemen issues, the pirates when they were there, hijacking ships and so on, Syria, Lebanon, but Saudi itself has always been a safe country. But now, I think honestly Saudi going out of its way to work to make sure that the whole neighborhood is safe as well, not just Saudi. One thing I might say, I'm very interested, in Vision 2030 and defense industry and so on. Yes, there is lots of success, but it's a huge challenge. But we're only one country. I can see the issue with Europe. When you are talking 27 and trying to deliver specific visions like this, I think the challenge, you multiply it by 27 times, I'm sure. So, but wish you best of luck.
Thank you all, gentlemen. Mr. Abukhaled, Mr. Papatsas, Mr. Boutsikakis, thank you, and I hope to achieve your goals. Thank you all for your attention, all of you. And now we can listen to a keynote address from Mr. Marco Minniti, Chairman of MED or Leonardo Foundation, former Minister of Interior and Secretary to the Prime Minister for Intelligence Service from Italy. We can watch the video. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Grazie mille per l'invito a questo Defense Summit più importante che mai. E viviamo in quella che potremmo definire l'era dell'incertezza, una radicale incertezza in un mondo che è profondamente rotto, che è attraversato da fratture molto profonde. Un vecchio ordine mondiale è finito ed è finito per sempre. E tuttavia dobbiamo sapere che se vogliamo pensare ad un orizzonte di pace stabile e duratura negli scenari di guerra aperti dal cuore dell'Europa, l'Ucraina, al Medio Oriente, quella che una volta era la mezzaluna fertile, oggi l'area intorno all'Iran, dobbiamo costruire insieme un nuovo ordine mondiale. E un nuovo ordine mondiale senza il sud del mondo non è possibile realizzarlo. E questa è la sfida che abbiamo tutti quanti di noi di fronte, che ha di fronte soprattutto un grande continente che si chiama Europa. E l'Europa oggi ha insieme rischi di fronte a sé e straordinarie opportunità. C'è bisogno di un'autonomia strategica dell'Europa. Per costruire questo nuovo ordine mondiale, l'Europa deve mantenere un saldo rapporto con gli Stati Uniti e contemporaneamente essere capace di sviluppare una politica che sappia parlare con il soft power al resto del mondo. E per poter fare questo c'è bisogno che l'Europa aumenti la sua capacità decisionale, venga superato il potere di veto, c'è bisogno di avere una politica estera che sia veramente comune e contemporaneamente una difesa autonoma e, aggiungo io, una capacità di proiezione. Per lungo tempo abbiamo discusso di un'autonoma capacità di difesa, sono diversi anni che ne stiamo parlando, tuttavia senza fare mai dei veri passi in avanti. Oggi, se si vuole essere protagonisti di un nuovo ordine mondiale, di un percorso di pace, bisogna avere un'autonoma capacità di difesa. In un rapporto che non può che essere quello di straordinaria collaborazione con l'Alleanza Atlantica, con la NATO. Una difesa europea non è in competizione e in rottura con l'Alleanza Atlantica. Non è nemmeno un punto di discussione con gli Stati Uniti. Sono convinto che una difesa europea, un'autonomia strategica dell'Europa costituisce anche per gli Stati Uniti una straordinaria potenzialità. Su questo mi viene in testa un vecchio detto che alla fine degli anni 90 del secolo scorso, all'inizio del terzo millennio, fu pronunciato da una personalità molto importante, ex segretario di Stato degli Stati Uniti, una donna, Madeleine Albright. Quando all'epoca si parlava già di una difesa europea, e questo ci dice quanto siamo in ritardo. Lei coniò questo slogan, disse dobbiamo avere una difesa europea che tenga conto nel rapporto con la NATO delle 3D. No discrimination, no duplication, no decoupling. Questo è il senso della sfida che abbiamo oggi di fronte. Ho ricordato Madeleine Albright per dire una cosa semplicissima, che la saggezza è qualcosa che è particolarmente importante. È importante sempre, ma si mi consenta di dire che di questi tempi la saggezza ha un ruolo particolarmente importante. Saggezza e visione. Con queste due parole noi possiamo pensare ad un mondo che esca definitivamente dall'era dell'incertezza.